Minister, is there an understanding among EU member states that the Union is significantly losing its credibility here in the Western Balkans by manifesting a lack of power, not being able to start accession talks with North Macedonia and Albania?
Well, I would say that an ongoing discussion, and we see this danger, absolutely, and we from the side of Austria, we want to start accession talks with North Macedonia and Albania. We even think it's overdue. We should have done already so in the past, and we are constantly working on this. As I always say, this is not the European backyard, as some people say. It's actually a European patio. It's surrounded by EU member states. There's no region which is more European than the Western Balkans. And we Austrians have very close ties, emotionally, humanly, economically, politically. So for us, it would be the most natural thing to have you as partners and full members in the European Union.
What about the credibility issue?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is an issue. I still believe that the majority of the member states absolutely stand behind the opening of accession talks. It's actually, I would say, nearly 26, if not 26 member states doing so. We are aware that there are issues, and I know the Portuguese presidency has worked very hard on these issues, and I have high expectations for the Slovenian presidency that it will continue these efforts. And I would still say for this region there's only one perspective, and it is a European one, because it's an European region. And for Europe as well, it's our self-interest. It's our self-interest to have the Western Balkans as full members of the European Union.
You mentioned nearly 26 member states. That brings me to my other question, because there's a feeling that Bulgarian blockade is silently approved by some member states of the Union that are against further EU enlargement.
I don't believe that. What I see is that there's a growing impatience, but bilateral issues should not hamper and block accession negotiations. We all have hundreds of bilateral issues. I come from a region, Central Europe, which is just as rich in history and in sort of open questions as is Southeastern Europe. And still, we managed to enlarge in 2004, to have our neighbors join the European Union. And there should be no mixing up between bilateral issues, historical issues, and the accession process to the European Union.
Although the message is coming from European Union member states is that, yes, we are for enlargement because open door policy, conditionality, the best tool to stabilize this region, it seems like that maybe not all of the member states are using all of the tools and instruments available to make enlargement more positive process.
You are absolutely right that there was a time when probably there was a sense of, as you call, enlargement fatigue, that a number of capitals had second thoughts, but I believe the tide is changing. And the way I look at it, and I have the feeling that more and more member states see it the same way, in politics there's no vacuum. So if we Europeans, we as European Union, big difference, we as European Union would turn our backs, then others would move in. It would be China or Russia or Turkey or others. And this is a European region. We have no interest in that. So in geopolitical terms, it's actually a question of it's either our way of life or somebody else's way of life, which imposes itself here. And I believe that this is a thinking which is growing in the European Union. And in the last meetings in the European Union, the Council, there was a growing frustration with the fact that we cannot advance on opening accession talks with Albania and North Macedonia, because frankly, you guys have done everything you had to do, and you deserve it.
Is Bulgaria isolated on these talks?
I would say so.
What do you personally think of this Skopje-Sofia issue raised by Bulgaria? And for example, one of their demands is that we, as a country, have to acknowledge that the Macedonian language has Bulgarian roots.
Now, I don't want to go into the details of these things. I can repeat what I said beforehand. Austria, we share hundreds of years of common history with Bohemia, Moravia, with Hungary, with Slovenia, and South Tyrol. And we still managed to join the European Union and have our neighbors joining the European Union. This is not the right process and the right framework to bring up these issues. That you have to talk to each other, that you have to find some kind of common understanding, and that you should avoid any language, anything which could hurt your neighbor. This is something which is a logical thing, but it has nothing to do with the accession process. And I have the feeling that Skopje has really done a lot already on this matter, and that you're aware that you have neighbors and that, there are open questions you have to deal with. But I don't want to go into details because this is something you have to figure out with your Bulgarian neighbors and friends. And I would say they're Bulgarian friends. I mean, you're so close to each other. Because it's probably part of the problem.
You won't go into details because the devil is in the details.
I know, the devil is in the details, but as I'm saying, this should not be an issue which is a EU issue. Then I wouldn't like to comment on each detail. But I believe there was a very sensitive proposal by the Portuguese EU presidency, which I had the impression went very far to satisfy, these needs from Bulgaria to have a certain sense of security. And I would have hoped, and I still hope, that this is a deal which would be acceptable for the next Bulgarian government.
When do you see the chance for the next breakthrough in this process?
I believe the next window of opportunity is after the elections in July. And then in the moment we have a government, I believe we should push very hard. And I'm aware that Prime Minister Zaev himself has reached out to the political parties, so that I believe everybody in Bulgarian politics is aware that this is an issue where they are watched by the European Union partners, by the US, and by the other partners in the Western Balkans.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.